Right, ready?
I think so.
Good. So, we're here with Emma Twyford. And let's get straight into it, Emma. You grew up in the Lakes.
Yes, that's
That
right.
must have been a cool place to start climbing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I was quite lucky in that my dad decided to take up climbing when he joined the mountain rescue team there, so
Oh, right.
that's how I got into it.
I mean, obviously, done a lot of research. I looked at Facebook. And, no, I've looked at the MM site. And you mentioned that there was a mate of your dad's that took you under his arm, Mike Park?
Mike Park, yes.
Yeah, and he was your original mentor.
He kind of is very good at showing me how to place all the gear, do it properly rather than just go, right, here you go.
So apart from the lakes, where obviously you've got a lingering love for the place, I mean, you mentioned that in one of the things you've got on the web. What was what was the first other crag you went to that really struck a chord with you? You thought, oh, this is a cool place to be.
Obviously, the first crag I went to was Shepherd's Crag. Typical. No, you can't. I guess Black Crag was always an impressive one.
Mm-hmm. But outside the lakes?
Outside the lakes. Oh, that's a tough one. I think outside the lakes, it would have to be Wales. I don't find that I connect very well with Greystone.
It's a love-hate thing, isn't it?
It is very much a love-hate thing. So I guess the one place that I've always wanted to go to and only recently have gone to is Gogarth. And the first route I went and did on the main bit was Dreaming of White Horses, which I've always wanted to do. So I think Gogarth for me is somewhere
that's really struck a chord.
Yeah.
Is it partly that the place is falling to bits, a bit like some Lakeland crags? Or
well, the main
sorry,
cliff.
I'm being rude now, obviously.
The main cliff isn't falling to bits.
Fair enough.
So that was quite nice to climb on. Although we did go on Red Wall as well, and that was an interesting experience.
So you must be pretty psyched for moving to Wales.
I am. I'm
change of scene, get away from the grit.
Yes, definitely get away from the grit. I mean, living in Sheffield has been fantastic. I know I've made a lot of friends here, and obviously everyone's really nice. So I kind of going to miss that side of the social scene. But I had a look back at how much climbing I actually did in the Peak District this year, and it wasn't much. I think I was always heading off to Malham and the lakes and Wales, and I think I probably climbed in the Peak District maybe like 5 times this year, 6 times. So I think from that aspect of it, the climbing side of it, I'm probably going to be more productive moving to Wales. I think because I've grown up on that style of climbing, it just suits me a lot more. I think if I'd grown up in the Peak District, then I'd be used to this style a bit more. But I think Greystone for me I find it a bit weird, a bit strange. I've enjoyed doing some of the routes, but also I think when you go to the lakes in Wales, you've got good protection, and the routes are a bit longer, and there's less of a chance of decking out.
Is there a weakness in your climbing? You know, obviously you're pretty strong in most areas, but is there something you feel you should work on? Is there one thing that perhaps you need to work on? You know, they always say train your weaknesses rather than strengths.
I think perhaps my dynamic movement has always been a weakness. And probably, I mean, my strength and my power can always be improved as well. I'm reasonably strong, but I'm not that strong. I haven't got the explosive power that would help for some harder climbs. So I guess the main thing that I worked on last year was my head and my attitude towards climbing. So that kind of made a big difference. I did my first 8A in 2010, which was Call of Nature. And then we went to Clymnos and I on-sighted Fundishashun, so I think that was a big confidence boost. And I was like, right, okay. And then 2011 came and I didn't really have any expectations as such, so there was no pressure for the year because I wasn't sure how much I was going to be able to get outside. And then I started going up to Malham, and Rain Dogs went quickly, Zuluk went quickly, and I was like, right, okay, they're two chalk and cheese kind of routes.
So, do you compete against others, or is it purely a personal thing? I mean, I'm thinking when you're at the crag and you get a chance to burn the blokes off, you might like that.
It's enjoyable at times.
I must ask this question. Heart in my mouth. Training regime. Do you have a training regime, or do you just climb?
I'm never stuck very well to a training program. I find that it's something that I don't actually. I get more stressed if I'm not doing it, so I find that I don't improve.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I was on the team, we did have a training plan, and I found that I was plateauing and still staying at the same level. Whereas I'll have an idea of what I want to do in a session, but if I don't do it, then it doesn't matter. So it's a very kind of relaxed training regime.
Which other climbers inspire you? Who are your role models?
Well, I don't.
Or don't you have any?
Kind of going to be strange, but when I did the competitions, I got this book from my first ever competition, and it was the Rachel Farmer Trust Fund book.
Yeah,
and
well.
I used to read that as a little kid, and go, oh my God, this woman is amazing. I mean, the first British woman to climb French 8A. And I always looked through that and got really inspired.
Yeah.
So I guess for me, she is someone that was inspirational, but I never got to meet her. I think this year, for women, the climbing's kind of just stepped up a notch. A lot more people have kind of done things this year, but it's still a small. I think 8A, there's a lot of women now have done 8A, and 8B's the now what 8A was a few years ago.
Sure.
But I guess for me it was always a confidence thing. I kind of was kept on putting off 8A for a very long time. I think I was like, well, I can do it, but I'll wait a little bit longer.
Obviously, you've done a lot of good, hard sport routes. Is that kind of, you feel now you can transfer that fitness onto trad routes? Do you think that's going to make the difference?
I think noticeably, I hadn't done much trad until this year. I've done a bit more again, and I think it's noticeable now that the moves feel easier on trad, having built up a higher grade of sports climbing. Because we went, I mean, on Gogarth, we went and did positron. E5, and the moves on that felt completely fine. Whereas I think like years ago when I was younger, E5 was kind of top end for me.
Sure.
And fighting up the moves.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a big difference from when I was perhaps like 16, 17 to now, is that I'm fitter and stronger, and I know more about my climbing than I did obviously then.